Welcome back. In this lecture, we'll learn tuples. Tuple is a collection data type which is ordered and unchangeable. And we'll cover the following topics. How to create tuples using round brackets and also using tuple constructor. And creating a tuple with only one element using comma. How to access tuple elements using index number. Return the tuple elements from the end using the negative index number. Return the range of elements using index and return the range of elements from the end using the negative index number. And also how to update the existing elements in tuple, loop through a tuple, check if the elements exist in a tuple, find the length of a tuple using len function, how to add an element to a tuple and how to remove an element from a tuple, and concatenate two tuples using plus concatenation operator. Now let's see the demo. Go to our IDE, go to our project practice, new Python file, and let's name it tuples demo. And let's add the comment tuples demo. So now the first one is create tuple using round brackets. So for the list we created using square brackets, right? So similarly, let's try to create a tuple using round brackets, and let's take the same elements Monday to Friday. So this is how we create tuple using round brackets, and let's try to print tuple 1. Let's add this to see in the console. So here we are trying to create our tuple using round brackets. Inside the square brackets we added the elements for the tuple. So Control S, right click and run tuples demo. So now you can see these elements are added into the tuple 1. Okay, now let's try to create another tuple using tuple constructor. So let's take tuple 1. So this is our constructor, and let's pass these elements to the tuple constructor. Now let's try to print the tuple that we created using tuple constructor. Control S and run it. So now you can see the first one we created using round brackets and the second one using tuple constructor, and the elements are the same. Now the next one is how to create a tuple with only just one element using comma. So let me create another tuple 2, and this tuple has just one element, Craig, and I'm just giving comma, and let me try to print the tuple that we created, that is tuple 2. Control S and run it. So now we can see only one element is printed in the console for the tuple 2. Now let's see how to access tuple elements using index number. Let's try to print the element for the tuple 1 at the index 2. So 0, 1, 2. So we should see Wednesday printed in the console. Now the next one is return the tuple elements from the end using the negative index number. So let's try to print this, and let's access the element from the end of the tuple using the negative index number. So -1 refers to the last element in the tuple. So it should print Friday. Let's try to print this. So now you see the value Friday printed in the console. So -1 refers to the last element in the tuple. Now let's see how to access range of elements using index. So let's say print for tuple 1. Let's try to access elements from 1 to 3. So for the positive numbers, the element at the index 3 is excluded. Okay, let me try to print another one, tuple 1 of 4. Here I'm not giving the start of the index range. So in this case, index 4 will be excluded. So let me give tuple 1 of, I'm just giving the start index and I'm ignoring the end index. Now let's see what happens. Let me try to run this. So it is trying to print the element from 1 to 2 and the index at 3 is excluded. So this is our tuple Monday to Friday, and we are trying to print the element from 1, 0, 1. So Tuesday and Wednesday, 0, 1, 2, and the Thursday will be excluded. So we should see Tuesday and Wednesday for the first one. And the second one, so index at 4 is excluded, right? So it should print from 0 to 3. So that means Monday 0, 1, 2, 3, Monday to Thursday. So that's what we see here. And here 1. And if you see, it is trying to print from, so 0 will be excluded. We are trying to print the elements from 1. So 1 to rest of the tuple elements. So we should see Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Now the next one, how to return the range of elements from the end using the negative index number. Let's try to print tuple 1 of, let's say, -3 to -1 and run it. Now we see in this case -3 is included and -1 is excluded. So we see the value Wednesday and Thursday, 1, 2, 3. So 3 is included whereas 1 is excluded. So we see Wednesday and Thursday as the output. So let's write that as a comment. -3 is included and -1 is excluded when we try to print the range of elements using the negative index number. The next one is updating the existing elements in tuple. Keep in mind, we cannot change the tuple. Tuples are unchangeable, that is immutable. But so what we can do, we'll first convert a tuple to a list and update the list and convert back to tuple. We know we can change list, we know we cannot change tuple. So first we'll convert tuple to list and then update the list and convert back to tuple. So list 1, I'm trying to create another list by using list constructor and pass tuple to it, tuple 1. And let me try to update the list. Let's say we're trying to add one element at the index 1 and let's take Sunday. Now convert to tuple. So we are trying to convert list 1 to tuple using the tuple constructor. And now let's try to print tuple 1. So let me try to print this. So we'll see in the console and run it. So updating the existing elements in tuple, at the index 1 the element Sunday is added to the tuple. So initially we passed the tuple to list constructor and created a tuple and added the elements to the list. At the index 1 we added element Sunday, and once we update the elements in the tuple, once we update the elements in list, we converted list to tuple and we are trying to print the tuple. Now we can see the element Sunday is added at the index 1. Okay, now let's see how to loop through a tuple. So let's use the for loop. For temp in tuple 1, and let's try to print temp, and also let's try to print this statement so we can see in the console. So this is our tuple. Now we are trying to print each element from tuple 1 and store it in temp variable, and we are trying to print temp. Now if you run, we see Monday, Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Each element from the tuple is printed in the console. Okay, now let's see how to check if the element exists in a tuple. By using if condition, let's check if Sunday exists in tuple 1. If it exists, then print element Sunday exists in tuple 1. Now let's run it. So now we can see we have the element Sunday inside tuple 1. So that's the reason it printed element Sunday exists in tuple 1. The next one is find the length of a tuple using len function. Print, let's pass our tuple to len function, tuple 1, and we have 1 2 3 4 5 elements. So let's run it. So now we see the length is 5. And the next one, how to add an element to a tuple. We know we cannot change tuple, but now let's see how to add an element. Tuple 1. So for the tuple 1, at the index 1, let me try to add an element Saturday, and let's try to print tuple 1. So here we are trying to add an element at the index 1 with Saturday. So this is our tuple now. So here it should add element Saturday. So now let's run it. We get the error, tuple object doesn't support item assignment. Here we assign the value Saturday to the element at the index 1, and it gave us the error, tuple object doesn't support item assignment, because we cannot change the tuple. So let's try to comment this. The next one is how to remove an element from a tuple. We cannot add an element to a tuple, and also since tuple cannot be changed, we can also not remove an element from a tuple. Since tuples are unchangeable, so we cannot remove an element from a tuple, but we can delete the tuple completely. We cannot remove just one element, whereas we can delete the tuple completely. So let's take delete. Let me try to give tuple 1, and let's try to print tuple 1. So when we printed tuple 1, we have these elements inside tuple 1. Now let's try to run this. So let me try to print tuple 1. So you get the error, tuple 1 is not defined because it is deleted completely. So that's why you cannot access tuple 1 anymore. Okay, so let me comment this so we'll not see the errors in the console. And let's see the last one, how to concatenate two tuples using concatenation operator plus. So now let's try to create tuple 2 and add the elements apple and orange. Let me create another tuple, tuple 3, and add, let's say, banana and grapes. Now let me try to concatenate these two tuples, tuple 2 and tuple 3, using concatenation operator plus, and let's try to print this as well. Now Control S and run it. So now we see apple, orange, banana and grapes. So we are able to concatenate two tuples by using plus concatenation operator. In the next lecture we'll learn sets. All right, see you in the next lecture.